How is everybody doing? I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. To the Native Patriots. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, y'all. Our boy Donald J. Trump is going back to the White House in January 2025, and I could not be more ecstatic. Although I'm currently exhausted. I just woke up from my nap because yesterday I was glued to the TV and to X, watching the whole election because of 2020. Definitely traumatized me. So I was like, I'm gonna watch this thing all the way through to make sure that that we actually win and we actually got this. So I think I went to bed around 3 a.m. Because I think at that point he was at 267 or 268 or something like that, and they had eventually called Pennsylvania, and so um, they hadn't called Alaska yet. So they already called Pennsylvania for Trump. He had Pennsylvania, and then he was at, I think, at 267 or something like that. And Alaska had not been called yet, and Alaska, I believe, is 3 electoral votes. So I was like, he got this. He's gonna win Alaska. I don't know why it's taking so long for Alaska to count, or Arizona or Nevada. They're taking so long, and even Michigan is like barely announced earlier today that um, Trump won Michigan too, and then he freaking won Wisconsin. Although Wisconsin was earlier than Michigan, but yeah, it's crazy that some of these states are taking so long. But anyways, as Trump says, the weave. Getting back to what I was saying earlier, that it was around after they called Pennsylvania, he was at 260, 267 electoral votes that I felt confident enough to go to bed and not wake up to see that Georgia turned blue, that Pennsylvania turned blue, that Wisconsin turned blue, that Arizona turned blue, that Nevada turned blue, because I was so traumatized from 2020 that I was like, I need to see that he won before I even think about going to bed. But like I said, at that point when he had Pennsylvania and it was officially called for him and we were just waiting on Alaska, I was like, he got this. So I felt confident enough to go to bed. But yeah, it was a crazy experience because earlier when I started watching everything, of course I was incredibly nervous. Although I will say that when they installed Kamala Harris as the nominee over Joe Biden, even though she didn't, campaign or participate in any presidential debates or whatever for to be the nominee, they just handed it to her on a silver platter. I already kind of in a way knew that it was not going to go well for Kamala Harris. And I know it's easier to say that after we won. But I did feel that way back then just because in 2020, she was so unpopular with her own party that she didn't even make it far when they were doing like the presidential debates and stuff like that, where where she basically called Joe Biden a racist, by the way. But she was so unpopular in her own party. So I'm thinking like when they said she was going to be the nominee for the to be the presidential nominee against Donald Trump, I'm like, that's not going to go very well because if she wasn't even popular in her own party, how are they going to get people to in her party to vote for her? Definitely Trump, Trump people are not going to vote for her, but how are they going to get her across the finish line? And my only thought of how they were going to get her across the finish line was a la 2020, meaning I have to be careful about this because this is YouTube, but all I'll say is that what we saw in 2020 did not make sense as far as several states saying they were going to stop counting, and then we all went to bed only to wake up to see Georgia flipped red, Arizona flipped red or blue, Georgia flipped blue, Nevada flipped blue, Arizona flipped blue, Pennsylvania flipped blue, Wisconsin, Michigan flipped blue. So that's the only way that I thought in my head. That's why I was so nervous yesterday because I was like, I hope I don't I hope I don't witness the same thing that I witnessed in 2020 for Kamala Harris. So I was definitely stressed out because of that specific reason, but I felt the energy. You know what I mean? Like, I know Texas was always going to vote for Trump. I still went out and voted though, but I already knew that they were going to give it to Trump here in Texas. But even like going different places, like the enthusiasm for Trump reminded me of 2016. And the only place that I saw a lot of support for Kamala Harris was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I don't know if I already said this, but I went to the rally in Albuquerque on Halloween. And so after that, by the way, I went with my mom and I went with my sister and then my nephew. We all went together as a family, which is really cool and amazing. I'm sure there's people out there that have that are Trump voters that have either lost family or have family that is so like vicious to them. But I'm fortunate enough that my mom opened her eyes because she did not vote for Trump in 2016. Um, and so, anyways, we went as a family, and after that, I took my niece out to go trick or treating in Albuquerque, and then the neighborhood that we went to was just like it felt like just a random neighborhood we went to, but there was so many Kamala Harris signs in Albuquerque. So like that's the only place that I kind of saw a lot of support for her, which is why I did not think she was going to win New Mexico. My mom was very hopeful that Trump was going to flip New Mexico to red, but I just didn't see it because there was an enthusiasm for Kamala Harris in Albuquerque, but that's because Albuquerque is a very liberal area. New Mexico is dominated by Democrats, but aside from that, like aside from those pockets, those very blue liberal areas, I did not see that much support for her. Other than maybe manufactured support. She has these rallies, all these celebrities come, so these people come because they want to see the celebrities, not her. So before the past couple months, like I felt like there was an energy starting to build for Donald Trump, regardless of the fact that the corrupt people in government tried to jail him. He almost got unalived in freaking Pennsylvania. It was a freaking miracle that he turned his head at the last second and narrowly missed taking that bullet. And I'm not a believer, I'm an atheist, but to me it was almost a sign from something that he was meant to live and not be shot by that killer. So that's something that I think about. But all this stuff that he's been through, I'm like, there's no way that he can go through all of this stuff and still lose the 2024 election. So I already had like that feeling, but like I said, I was still completely nervous just because of what we saw in 2020. But I will say that we owe a lot to Laura Trump, which I believe is the co-chair of the RNC, which anytime there was reports of some shadiness yesterday, that or even during early voting across the United States, it was reported to her and her team, and they quickly did their best to de-escalate any kind of possible shenanigans. They had to file lawsuits in some places to get poll workers to be able to go poll watch or whatever, poll watchers. And so we owe a great deal to Laura Trump because she is a strong, smart woman that is around Trump, despite what other losers think. But her, and then also Scott Presler, I believe Scott Presler got PA for us for Trump, and he did such an amazing job. A true patriot. And also Elon Musk, he campaigned for Trump in all over Pennsylvania, and we owe a lot to him too. And I mean, I'll be like honest, there was a part of me like that I didn't trust Elon, because to me he was almost kind of like too good to be true. Like, here's this very smart tech billionaire that is very popular on social media, and he seems to kind of be going towards like our side. And I'm thinking like, maybe he's doing this because he wants to infiltrate us and use us and whatever that. I mean, maybe he still is, but the fact that he actually put his reputation on the line, I guess, to campaign for Donald Trump and endorse him, like that says a lot. So we also, and he's an immigrant, so we owe a lot to him too. And so it's just been such a surreal experience. Yesterday, like I was waiting for Georgia first. We won Georgia. It almost seems kind of narrowly though. North Carolina, we won. And I wasn't too worried about North Carolina, although it was kind of close also. But what's crazy to me is, this is just my opinion. Like, I can't understand any person in North Carolina that would want to vote for Kamala Harris, after she's been in the current administration with Joe Biden, after the disastrous response to the hurricanes and how this administration handled the hurricanes, and basically couldn't care less about the residents of North Carolina. The same could be said for Hawaii. I didn't think that Hawaii was going to turn red, just because Hawaii tends to be a very blue area. But the fact that, again, this administration showed that they didn't care about the people of Maui, and how the response was to that during the Maui fires. They were too busy giving other priorities to other countries and giving other countries money. So it to me, it still baffles me that anybody would want to vote for this administration after they clearly showed that they could not care less about you. That's beside the point. But uh, Pennsylvania, that was the next state that I had to keep an eye on, and we were getting a lot of good results, but I was thinking, like, don't get your hopes up. You know what I mean? Like, we need to see this to the end. And so it was about like maybe 93-94% reported for Pennsylvania. He had a big lead. And I think Fox News, my sister told me that Fox News called Pennsylvania for Trump, and I started like getting the feels a little bit. I'm like, this is happening. Like, this is happening. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, I was thinking, like, 2020, what happened in 2020? So I was like starting to get the feels, like, wow, this is actually happening. But at the same time, I was holding myself back, because I was like, this seems too good to be true because of what happened in 2020. So even though it was like 93-94%, I'm like, in my opinion, that was still enough of a margin or a percentage where all of a sudden they could magically find, 160,000 ballots for one specific candidate. That was like the terror in my head, and I was so paranoid. And I was even telling my sister, I was like, I'm sorry, I know, like, I want to celebrate, but it almost feels too good to be true, and I'm gonna wait till it gets to like at least 96 or 97%. But at that point, it was like, okay, they called it for Donald Trump eventually. The AP called it for Donald Trump, besides Fox News. And so at that point, I was like, we got this, because at that point, I think he was at like 267 electoral votes. And Alaska had not been counted yet. And Alaska, we all know, is going to go for Trump, and that's 3 electoral votes. That's 270. So my thought process last night was like, I wanted to stay up all the way until the end, till he like officially got over 270. But like I said, around 3 o'clock, he was at 267, and then Alaska would have been 3 votes to 270. So at that point, I was like, I feel so confident going to bed right now, because I don't feel like we're gonna wake up and then all of a sudden PA is 10,000 votes more for Kamala Harris all of a sudden. So yeah, that was wild, and I couldn't even go to bed even when I tried to go. And then I woke up this morning earlier than I wanted to, and then I woke up and immediately I checked my phone, and I was like making sure, like, this has to be real. You know what I mean? So I checked, and Donald Trump had won. He got over the 270 mark. They eventually called Wisconsin for him, because also the same thing, Wisconsin, even at like 80%, close to 90%, he still had a very big lead. But also my thought process for that was as well is like, I want to at least get to 95 for me to feel confident that he's gonna win Wisconsin, because again, I don't want them to find some magical ballots that are all for Kamala Harris, like 100,000 ballots. So eventually they called Wisconsin, and eventually they called Alaska. And recently, like, I think maybe close to noontime, they finally called it for Michigan too. And Michigan was way close, but I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, it's annoying because Arizona still hasn't been counted. It's ridiculous to me that like Arizona and Nevada still haven't been counted. Like Alaska, I think they eventually called, but it's like these states should not be taking this long. You know what I mean? Like this is ridiculous. Like we live in the United States, not like a freaking third world country. So although I do believe that the current administration is trying to make us one of those third world countries, but it's just been a wild ride, dude. Like we won, you know, and like I'm looking forward to all of the liberal cope on the internet as far as these people that are going nuts that Trump won and saying, you know, and the you know people in the media are already saying like blaming minority men and Hispanic men and saying that we're misogynists because we don't want a woman um, you know, president. And for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I don't care if the president has a vajayjay or a panini, you feel me, as long as they're freaking confident, but competent and confident. But Kamala is not it. It's she you've all seen the interview. She can't freaking answer questions directly. She's weak. And it's not because she's a woman, it's because she's Kamala. You know what I mean? We need somebody strong like Donald Trump. Like I'm already seeing stuff about how some of these other countries are actually trying to like now kind of work on peace across the world, and it's like, wow, like it only took us to get the right person in office to kind of hopefully start, you know, bringing back really the world back into some type of sanity because um, I really do believe that if Kamala would have won yesterday, that this country would have been down the toilet. Like it was already started in the. It's crazy how fast 4 years this country was starting to deteriorate, and to even think about another 4 years of that, and even to think like, okay, now we have to re-campaign again. If Kamala wins, we have to go through another 4 years of hell. And on top of that, in 2028, we have to do this all over again, this election cycle. And who knows? I don't know if Donald Trump would have tried in 2028. I'm thinking that JD Vance is going to be kind of like the person who gets the torch passed to him. I would totally support, you know, assuming JD does a good job these next 4 years, which I totally feel confident he will. I will definitely vote for JD Vance for the next president in 2028. And maybe it might be DeSantis. Maybe by then DeSantis will be ready, and I would totally vote for DeSantis as well. I think DeSantis did an amazing job with Florida, and I don't think DeSantis can run for a third time in Florida anyways. So I just really hope that they find a good replacement for Florida. And it's crazy because like Kamala was so unpopular. Joe Biden, I believe, only lost Florida by like 3 points. And yesterday, or at least as far as the results are now, it looked like Kamala lost Florida by like 3 times that. And the same can be said for Texas. I think Biden lost Texas last time by only maybe 6 points, and she lost it by like at least 12. So double that. And it's it's just freaking crazy, dude. And it's like I know that this video is super long. I do apologize, but um, I just feel like it almost feels like it's not real because it. This is just like this is what we need, you know. This is what we need, and it feels like we're going to be going on the right track. And I know there's going to be so many people out there, Trump haters especially, that are going to be like, you know, we're such in a horrible time as they're paying for 99-cent gas, as their, you know, groceries are cut in half. Like they're going to be complaining and saying that, you know, they're living in the most wild time or awful times. It, I don't care about that. I am actually looking forward to all of these people talking so much trash because it's just freaking hilarious. But I can just take a big sigh of relief that we've gotten our country back. And of course, we have so much to do. Of course, Trump cannot fix everything, but at least we're like headed in the right direction. We're turning the ship around. we have all of us, well, not all of us, people with brains see that we were heading towards a big iceberg, and now we're turning this ship around, honey, and we're turning the page. We're turning the page on this current administration, and I'm so here for it, and I could not be more happy. I'm still, like I said, I'm in shock. I still haven't necessarily accepted it, but yeah, I'm gonna stop it there and look, rewatch this video years from now and just remembering how historic this time was. Like I said, my family and I, we went to the rally in New Mexico like a couple weeks ago, and we were a part of history, and we will be a part of history when we go to the inauguration in 2025 of January, and to be part of history again. And it's it's crazy to think, like, there's so many people that hate Trump so much because they've been fed lies and they believe those lies, and their hatred of Trump outweighs the love for their own country and the rest of their citizens. So I take pride in the fact that years from now, when the history is written, that I was on the right side of history. You know what I mean? And that's something that I take great pride in. But having said all of that in 20 minutes, Trump won. Trump won, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Trump won. I will see you guys later. Bye.